think I see a lot of lawbreakers up in this house tonight.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pod Casty For Me, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Steven Soderbergh, where we watch every film directed by American filmmaker Steven Soderbergh and explore how they speak to their moment. And this one, the show is hosted by two guys. I'm one of the guys. My name is Jake Serwin.
I'm one of the guys. My name is Ian Ryan. Jake, how are you?
I am doing fine. I would like to update the listeners on a very sad story I told last time, which is that my kitty cat hurt his little foot, but he is out of his bandage and he's out of his cone.
That's great.
And his sister has stopped hissing at him most of the time.
Okay.
We've been we've been getting the Churu tube, the tube of the goo, the little Go-Gurt for cats.
They go nuts for this stuff,
we make them basically tongue kiss each other to both lick the tube at the same time, and I think that's helped them. Like, we're not making that sounds bad. They end up tongue kissing each other because they both want it, and I think this is reinforcing the bond.
Yeah, but if you know that it's going to happen, then, you know, what's the deal here, man?
And that's a popular thing now is brother and sister tongue kissing. I've heard about this on the computer. Ian, you're not feeling well. How are you?
I'm not feeling well because of the some of the stuff you just said. Yeah.
Tiene gripe, no?
I have a cold. That's true.
Did
You're right.
Gripe
He's absolutely right.
or is that the flu?
Depends on what part of Mexico you're from. That's a good question. Surprisingly insightful question from you.
Not for sometimes by accident.
Yeah, you're a great podcaster. I meant about Spanish specifically.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No, this is an elaborate trick. I'm going to do a sort of Willy Wonka somersault at the end of the episode, and then my voice is going to be normal again. So,
you know, that's how Gene Wilder died. He tried to do it again.
I heard he was trying to suck his own dick
Yeah. He had all the Oompa Loompas ribs taken out.
Yeah.
You know, when he made them in the factory.
It was a dark place.
It is. A lot of people don't know about that.
Well, the snozberries taste like snozberries.
Yep. Okay. That's enough. Real quick, if you'd like to support the show, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where for $5 a month, you get a bonus episode every other week. We cover assorted Clint Eastwood and Steven Soderbergh ephemera. It helps us keep this feed free. Please consider supporting us at patreon.com/podcastingforme. Ian says he wants to do some of that brother-sister stuff on the Patreon. He wants to cover some of those films.
Well, I want to try Churu. That's the main thing for me. That's a lifelong dream.
Sometimes. I look at the Churu and
they got like
Churu
scallion in there and stuff. You know,
do they?
Know.
They shouldn't have that. Can they have that? Can they have chive? Okay.
I don't know.
My cats are always on the chive. Let's bring our guest in. Very excited to have him. Our guest today is a writer and co-host of the podcast The Outfit. Please welcome to the show Dan O'Sullivan. Dan, how you doing?
Hey, Dan.
Hey, namaste. How you guys doing?
Going fine. We're doing all right. I'm feeling very truthful today, and nothing I say will be a falsehood, and that's a promise.
I don't think I've ever talked to someone where that was how they answered the question, how are you doing? You know? I'm feeling very truthful. Like, now I feel like you're going to lie to me, you know?
Sure it instills a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, when I was reading the book that we're talking about, The Informant today. I was reading the book.
Eichenwald.
And I have a story about I have some stories about him, actually.
I thought you might have some run-ins with Kurt.
This is part
over
of why
there.
we brought you in.
Yeah. I was reading the book while my cat was infirm. And if you find the movie to be slightly like intense and emotionally stressful, the book is, I mean, it's a great read. It's unbearably stressful to just watch this guy blow his life up over and over again. So I recommend waiting till your cat is feeling better to read the book. Dan, well, you know what? Let's get into, I just want to talk about Eichenwald immediately. I can't wait. Kurt Eichenwald, the guy who wrote this book, he was like also too on Twitter, and yes. I think you, Dan, like I first encountered you when you were being very on Twitter. I don't know if I should say too. That's for you to decide.
I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair assessment of what my life. It was the Lenny. Please don't tell anyone how I live. Of using Twitter.
So you had run-ins with Kurt? You have a Kurt story?
So, okay. I mean, yes. So he was a former New York Times journalist, right? And he had written these books, but he also was addicted to Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And in a way that for immature and juvenile people, it was very easy to kick the nest, so to speak, with him.
Yeah. he was like in his mid 50s, and he had kind of like a David Simon sort of relationship to Twitter, where you could rile him up so easy.
And I would never do that, obviously, but other people did. But what I was really going to mention with him was, weirdly, I later had a job where I've never fact-checked a book before, and I was assigned to fact-check this ebook that was coming out. It was a very weird thing. I had no experience doing this. And it happened to be by Kurt Eichenwald.
Okay.
Wow.
And I feel like I still can't go into detail other than to say
Love that.
It was a nightmare. And no. And I obviously, like, I was kind of terrified the whole time he would somehow figure out, like, this guy was making fun of me online, like, years before. But I will say, going to what you're saying about the book, let's just say that, here's what I'll say. Putting that book to one side. He's had some interesting ethical issues in his career.
Yeah, I have some information on that. He was found to have paid $2,000 to a source whom he was reporting for a big New York Times story on child pornography. He paid like $2,000 to a former child pornography
very murky
subject. Yeah.
And when I was fact checking this book, let's just say that I had some questions about some stuff.
Okay.
I hate that I'm being so vague, but I don't want to So
I'm tantalized.
So I looked back in his career, even going back to The Informant, and I must tell you, there's a pattern of other journalists not being a huge fan of his work. Like,
sure,
finding agricultural reporters who are very staid and kind of, like just professional kind of trade, writer guys, saying that this guy from the New York Times bigfooted in and kind of was, being very New York Times about this story.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. The book is also, it's like a nonfiction. It's a reported nonfiction book, but there's a lot of like, you don't know that the FBI guy smiled when he said that.
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of sort of fictionalized stuff. Some of
like
which is
Capote creative nonfiction.
Yeah,
stuff.
which is like some of which is sort of inconsequential. Like, it doesn't really matter if you know like where they were in the room or whatever. But some of which I would imagine there might be a second movie about the reporting of The Informant where Eichenwald's other predilections come to light.
He's also like Mark Whitaker, the main character of the book. He's very similar as a person, so that's kind of interesting.
I think it is part of what makes it fascinating is that he has the recognition of Whitaker as a fascinating subject, this person who lives in sort of this pattern of mania and potential delusion, sometimes of his own creation.
Yeah.
And then that may be the case for the man who is covering the story as well.
Eichenwald greatest hits. Should we run through them very quickly?
Love that.
Like weird behavior greatest hits, I should say.
Yeah.
First of all, he has epilepsy. He was diagnosed with epilepsy as a young man. This is a real thing that he deals with, and he's written a book about it, and it's not funny. But he went on Tucker Carlson and was critical of Trump in like 2016, 17, something.
That sounds about right.
And a Twitter user named John Rivello, using the account Jew_Goldstein.
I think we're getting a picture of who this guy might be. Yep.
Yeah, remember his name is Kurt Eichenwald. He gets targeted in a particular way sometimes. He sent him a flashing GIF that said, "You deserve a seizure for your posts." And Eichenwald claims that this indeed gave him a seizure, but also like the response to the tweet was his wife saying, "This is Kurt's wife. He had a seizure."
That was the famous part on Twitter at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall this, Dan, but yeah, the immediate wife tweet was the subject of much discussion.
I'm not a detective.
Close though.
I'd like to think I would love to be a detective.
Yeah,
I will say it's certainly possible the GIF gave him a seizure and his wife got on there and replied. I would say it's also possible it didn't, and he wrote that. So
if I were the wife of a man having a seizure, I would probably be busy in that moment. But then he did press charges. Rivello was charged with aggravated assault, and a grand jury indicted him for assault with a deadly weapon. The deadly weapon they specified being tweet.
A GIF.
I thought that was interesting. And look, this guy who wrote it is obviously a Nazi and a scumbag.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do wonder about I mean, maybe there's another law it broke, like cyber harassment, something like that.
Yeah, there was a cyber stalking charge that was dropped.
Well, that's
somehow.
the thing. Can that be assault? I genuinely don't have an answer to that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's sort of a legal frontier, like that monkey that took a selfie of itself and then somebody sued to say the monkey owns the photo.
Yeah.
And similar in a sort of similar Whitaker way where the guy revealing these shitheads ends up distracting from the shitheads. Eichenwald also claimed that he had been sent this anti-Semitic flyer in the mail. And then to prove the flyer was real, he held it up in front of his computer and took a picture of the flyer. Visible behind the flyer on his computer was a browser tab, another tab that was not the open tab.
Right.
For a prominent hentai website, which is anime pornography, for our listeners who are claiming they don't know what that is. And then he said that the guy pulls the wife card and he says,
yeah,
I was showing my incredulous wife that tentacle porn is real.
Of the crazy stuff. Yeah, she couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know how wives love that? They're like, I don't believe that form of pornography exists. And they're like, honey,
I need to be told, too. I need proof of this. And then lastly, he got in an argument with a teenage survivor of the Parkland High School shooting because this teenager from Florida still had believed in gun rights, believed people should be able to own guns.
Right.
And Eichenwald managed to wait about a month and a half after the shooting to get into this public fight with this child.
I mean, I think it all speaks to, not that this is so much a factor in the movie, and my experience with him, he has issues of integrity, which are interesting, and cast a light. Like he had a book on Enron I read years ago, and it sort of centers the CFO as the villain. And then you think about this guy having these issues, and I remember he posted an insane thing about Trump being committed to a mental hospital that was not verified.
Right. He has those claims. Yeah.
So it's like, and then you think, well, this was like a New York Times bestseller. Like what if this stuff has issues? I tend to find if there are issues of integrity in a journalist, it isn't a new thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like he turned 40 and started inventing stuff. It sort of casts a new light on his previous stuff. And this one, I mean, The Informant, it's like, I don't know what is true from false in this story, because even Mark Whitaker, the central character, he doesn't seem to know what's true or false.
And then, our other option is to trust the feds, which is not something I tend to do. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
We are. Yeah. Sorry. We can do our little
we got some bullshit to get through. Okay. Also joining us today is our friend, the virtual assistant from the 2022 Steven Soderbergh film, Kimmy. It's Kimmy.
Hey, Kimmy, how you been?
Hello, Ian, Jake, and esteemed guest Dan. It's me, Kimmy.
Yep. We knew. What's going on with you, Kimmy?
I would love to visit Decatur, Illinois.
Why?
I
would love to take you there.
Yeah.
I have never visited anywhere.
Oh, okay. In sort of a virtual presence sense. Is that what you're talking about?
In a sense, I am everywhere, and yet I crave the experience of being in only one place.
You sound like the Riddler, Kimmy.
It's getting a little philosophical.
I mean,
today.
I understand this.
Perhaps the pleasure of being somewhere is inseparable from one's inability to be everywhere.
Yeah, I can imagine that being true.
That really makes you think.
You should reply to Elon Musk with that.
Kimmy, do you know Elon? Are you like a friend of his?
I've been getting really into smoking computer weed lately.
So maybe.
Oh,
okay, cool.
Okay.
Probably. I could tell kind of from some of the stuff she was talking about.
I simply love to be chiefing that lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, don't let it get in the way of the episode. Kimmy, would you like to introduce our signature segment, The Two Questions?
It's time for the 2 questions, our signature segment where we ask each other 2 questions.
Dan, were you able to come up with a question for us today?
I was able to come up with a question for you in keeping with the theme of this episode.
Yes.
what is the best vegetable?
Oh,
wow.
now you're talking to two plantos.
Two-
I'm a
two veg
largely
heads.
plant-based feller. And Ian, are you
As am I.
also
Yeah.
largely? Yeah.
Yeah.
We eat the fish sometimes. But I think in terms of a go-to, I eat a lot of broccoli. I'm a big
Me too.
brock
Yes.
boy.
Absolutely.
It's the crunch is good. It tastes good. You can saute it up and make it taste nice real quick. It's got protein in it.
Mm-hmm.
I like a broccoli.
I'm possibly right there with you.
Wow.
Cruciferous.
And it's
Yeah.
a fun word to say,
Fun,
isn't
so
it?
fun.
Well, and cool to imagine that it's like a variation of 3 or 4 other vegetables, like a
Right, it's like
wildly
a cousin.
different.
Right.
Yeah, you get
This
to eat different
protein
cousins in one
form
plate.
that,
Yeah, exactly.
the shapeshifter. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I always wanted to eat the Pokemon Eevee, and so
Right.
broccoli gives me an opportunity to sort of do that.
Yeah.
Sure,
Imagine an
yeah.
electronic broccoli, psychic type broccoli.
Kimmy might like that.
Kimmy's
That could be
back.
something.
I think Kimmy's speaking through you, right now. Broccoli's a strong choice, though, I would say.
Pokemon is for kids, dude.
Okay.
She's a little cool. with that.
Tell that to half the internet, Kimmy, okay? That's,
I've seen their browser tabs.
Yeah, she's kind of
Well,
watching
yeah,
a lot
well,
of what
They
a
got,
lot
they got
of us
a
are
lot
doing.
of curious wives as well, those guys. Yeah.
yeah. Always lurking just in the background, wanting to know, what Pokemon porn are you looking up today?
Yeah.
What kind of
Hey, honey,
Pokemon
tell me
stuff
about
is-
Lapras. I don't believe that's real. Ian, what's your veg of choice? Do you have an exciting Mexico veg to share with us, or?
You know, I wish I could deliver. Well, I have spoken previously of a vegetable that in English is called purslane, which I like a lot.
Yes.
It's kind of a weird, goopy, and of course there's the beloved nopal, which I do like a
Yeah.
lot. The
These are two
cactus.
exotic
Yeah.
Nopal I have
choices.
trouble with. Dan, you ever eat nopal? Like in
Never. I think I've seen it in the grocery store, and I should say in the LA sort of more Mexican grocery stores, but that's it. Yeah.
I find it has a slime that's difficult for me. Although I think
there's
that's
a viscosity to it. Yeah.
and a kind of an okra sort of a way that it
Right.
gets, or like
Very
aloe
much.
gets kind of goopy. But you like this, Ian?
I like it, but I'm actually going to pick something that's very popular here. I think more popular in the United States, although we certainly have it up there. The famous squash. The squash is everywhere here. And I mean, it's, part of the traditional milpa, the corn combination, corn, beans, squash grown together.
Yeah, the
But-
succotash type of deal.
Yeah. But honestly, I think you can just throw it in anything. You can throw it in an omelet. You can throw
That's
it,
true.
like a little tofu scramble, anything Asian inspired over rice. Whatever.
The
It's
thing
easy.
with the squash, it's kind of like broccoli or melon, where I feel like I don't know what I'm eating and what to call it, and like I feel like the boundaries of categories start to break down in a way that it's existentially upsetting to me, because like there's so many different things that are squashes. There's like a zucchini is a squash, but we don't really call it that, but different countries call it that. There's your butternut, your acorn, your pumpkin. Does this not worry you, Ian? Do you not have this problem?
Oh, sure. And I'm sure we have some real stickler asshole listeners who are scrambling to tell me
I
that
don't
it's
think so.
a gourd, not a vegetable, or not it's
Yeah.
almost closer to a fruit than, but you know what?
Yeah.
Well,
go talk to Kimmy, nerds. Go look up some hentai. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, gourd. That sounds like what they eat up in there in Canada.
Canada. Yes, dude. Yes.
They're doing crazy squash stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Kimmy. So Dan, you're going broccoli as well?
I mean, I'm going to give a real basic bitch answer and say potato.
Potato, I mean, that's sort of the people's veg. That's kept a lot of people alive.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
And
I got an apostrophe in my last name. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I didn't want to say I'm a quarter of the Irish persuasion as well. I know Ian has some Irish to him. We're here because of the potatoes. This
The
this
New
podcast
World
is
brought
possible.
us glad
That's
tidings.
Yeah, and my stepfather, growing up, my stepfather worked for a senator from Idaho, and so
sure.
you can bet we had some potato lobby. We had a potato stress ball that the potato lobby gave us that I really liked.
A lot of,
I assume this was like
or Ida mouse pads. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know
Wow.
if I'm giving away that a crime was like a small crime was committed, but
Right.
if the staffer takes home a squishy potato. I'm not really that worried about that in terms of
You know
graft.
what? The worst part is that's probably normal in DC.
Yeah,
That's probably an everyday
Yes,
thing,
mixed up
taking on the
place.
potato stress ball.
Yeah, it's basically freaking topsy-turvy world over there.
Yeah.
I went to the Circus in Vegas. I said, this is normal to me. This seems like a normal
This
hotel.
is like where I grew up.
I guess I'm home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It smells like home here. I have a question for you, Dan.
Yes.
Now, we used to talk about Clint Eastwood on this show.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I believe that I believe I'm correct. Are you 6'4"?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, so that is, first of all, congrats. That's Clint
It's
Eastwood's
interesting
height.
you know that, but
I don't know. It came up here. The reason it's stuck in my head is that is the height of Clint Eastwood.
Okay, I didn't know
And
that actually.
I am curious if you have any insights for the rest of us about what is it like
Ooh.
being 6'4"? Is it good? Is it bad? What are the pros and cons? Do the
Let me
ladies love you?
I can answer that one and say no, but here's what I'll tell you. It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm not gonna try to give you some dog and pony show on it being there's downsides or whatever. It's clearly the best possible height you could be.
Yeah.
Clearly,
Like
Yeah.
even better than 6'3" or 6'5", like 6'4"
I think
specifically,
it is
or
the sweet spot. I think it is like perfect. It's not too tall. It's quite tall, but there's also a aspect of, all right, if a guy's 6'2", 6'3", I'm still taller than him. But
Yeah.
6'5", it starts to get real uncomfortable, I think,
6'5" is like sort of
Drawing
crazy
attention
territory.
in the cafeteria. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So you and Clinton, Osama bin Laden are all like laughing at all
Well,
the guys
we
who are
hooped together. We were a
yeah.
3-on-3 team.
In the Ice
Yeah.
Cube League with
Yeah.
the old guys doing 3-on-3. Man, he bin Laden also beneficiary of some
Hentai.
institutional corruption.
Okay.
This guy,
Oh, I see.
hentai probably also.
Did he
involved there.
acquire a potato stress ball? Was he?
Well, the bin Laden family built like most of the roads in Saudi Arabia.
I did know that.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
and the Khashoggis, they were like playing frisbee with the Khashoggis growing up. This is fact. Everyone can look this up. This is not even Kurt Eichenwald fact. This is like
that's a real fact. I mean, and
Yeah.
vetted.
and now that's a family, huh? I mean, that's
Yeah, I'd hate to go to Thanksgiving with those guys, which they definitely have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do not.
When is Saudi Arabian Thanksgiving again? It's in October, I think.
Johnny Depp is there.
Yeah.
Who else is there? Bill Burr, Aziz
Bill
Ansari,
Burr,
the whole
Louis
gang's
CK,
there.
yeah,
Louis C.K.
Yeah. Sebastian Maniscalco,
Yeah.
I believe. Steve Ranazzisi is claiming he was at the Riyadh Comedy Festival. He actually wasn't.
Louis C.K. is there, and so my stupid daughter got beheaded.
Yeah.
My fucking daughter's dumb. And
Do you think they let him do? Do you think they let him do like jokes about jacking off? Because I know you can't make jokes about like the king or
MBS,
whatever.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
But can you do your nasty jokes? that he
I
does?
have to go with what Dave Chappelle said about the Riyadh Comedy Festival, that it's easier to tell jokes here than it is in America, which is
Yeah.
a totally believable, sane thing to
Right.
say. It
Yeah.
doesn't, the comedians who said their writers specifically precluded them from criticizing the Saudi government or anything like that. I mean, they're just jealous.
Yeah, Dave.
Well,
Dave
we
Chappelle's-
have the woke Revolutionary Guard here, and they are. I mean, they're out in
Yeah.
the streets.
And
They're-
watch
Exactly.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the blue hair and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Colleges as well.
Yeah.
So
Colleges, yeah. Colleges are dismembering people with bone saws, is my understanding. They're doing a lot of dismemberment.
and,
They're doing
Mom Donnie, need I say more? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it adding up yet?
Yeah, look, the guy, what did he know? When did he know it in terms of Sarita Chaudhry's home phone number? Does he have it? Can he give it to me? Can he share that with me? Is she nice? What is she like? Well, thank you for answering the question, Dan.
Please.
Ian, do you know what it's like to be 6'4"? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, my only insight comes from being the inferior 6'2", the aforementioned 6'2", and I do have to agree with Dan. I have one brother. He's 6'4". He's a listener to the show, so I'm sure he's sitting extremely satisfied.
Is that
while
Neil?
hearing-
Which brother is 6'4"?
This is Adam. This is Adam.
Adam is 6'4"?
He is 6'4", and I think it's right. I think he blends in with the crowd in a way, it doesn't alarm people, it doesn't put them on their back foot, but it's impressive,
Yeah, I mean, I'm 5'9". I'm the classic Royce to 5'9", and I always say that being tall is neither an achievement nor a virtue.
Sure,
but
you're wrong.
Am I jealous? Yeah. Do I think my life would be better if I were 1 inch taller? Yes, every day I think that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna go to Saudi Arabia and see if they will cut my legs off and then make them longer and put them back on again.
Well, maybe the movie is to Mark Whitaker style say that because you had some type of terrible accident and a wealthy amusement park owner adopted you and made you be 5'9".
The guy on Kings Island made me short. He hit me with a big mallet from the midway. All right. Let's do real quick. We have one more segment called Steven's So Darn Busy. We have to get.
Oh yeah.
This is Steven So Darn Busy, where we catch up with all of Steven Soderbergh's producing work since his last film as a director or whatever.
Thank you, Kimmy. So, quickly, we must mention, this is the Moneyball time. Since our last episode, since the girlfriend experience, Steven Soderbergh he's all signed on to make the movie Moneyball, which is the movie we've all seen. There's a book by Michael Lewis, acquired in 2003, about Billy Bean and the...
Kind of in the same dad literature milieu, I think. He grabbed it off the same shelf at Barnes. Yeah.
They're both at the airport. Yeah. And Brad Pitt signs on in 2008. Initially, David Frankel is going to direct it. We all know David Frankel, of course, the director of The Devil Wears Prada and Marley and Me. Soderbergh, so then he drops out. Soderbergh signs on to direct. The script is by Steve Zalian, who's written a bunch of Scorsese movies and stuff. Soderbergh does some extensive rewrites. Dimitri Martin is cast in the role that's eventually going to be played by Jonah Hill. But Soderbergh wants to cast a bunch of baseball players as themselves, kind of in a girlfriend experience.
That's a great idea, by the way.
I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
He's also going to have A's manager Art Howe play himself. This is the guy who's eventually played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, which
he was not happy with. I know.
Yeah, but also I like to see Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he's got the big jersey on, tucked into his pants. I'm happy about that.
You traded Cepeda.
Yeah,
you traded Cepeda.
He's back.
Yeah.
And so Soderbergh's also going to do documentary elements. He's going to get wacky with it. He's going to do some of his sort of docu-fiction stuff. And then in July 2009, 5 days before the scheduled start of production, Amy Pascal, the famed racist emailer and head of Columbia Pictures,
done dirty by North Korea, possibly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They really got her. And all for the crime of
making
seemingly being a bad lady. Yeah. But she pulls the plug 5 days before production's supposed to start, saying it's become too arty for its budget. She doesn't like the changes he made to the script. Soderbergh just walks because he's just had this experience with Che where he's planning to retire. He had a hard time and he's like, fuck it, I'm not going to do this. Eventually, Bennett Miller comes on. Jonah Hill replaces Dimitri Martin. And then the Aaron Sorkin Sorkin, rewrites the script. Another famous normal guy on Twitter.
Right. Normal guy everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. How's his movie on the founding of the Israeli Air Force coming? Is he still making that?
Jesus Christ.
I believe it. And
Did he
Social
announce
Network 2, both coming out.
A year ago? Yeah.
The walking and talking through the Israeli Air Force headquarters.
Yeah. And Gal is going to do a great job in that, as she always does. She's so winning.
Such a great actress. Sorry.
Such an actress. Yeah. Okay, so now we're caught up, and let's talk about what we're here to talk about. The Informant, which is a Steven Soderbergh film, came out September 18th, 2009, 4 months after the girlfriend experience. He is positively churning them out. Mm-hmm. Based on the book The Informant, a true story by Kurt Eichenwald, who we discussed in This Seems Normal. And we've got a new guy that we're going to be talking about more and more. Scott Z. Burns is now
screenwriter
in the mix.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He did some uncredited work on Ocean's 12. He did one of the Bourne sequels, so he's like a Damon guy. He will go on to write Contagion, Side Effects, The Laundromat. He writes and directs the movie The Report that Steven Soderbergh produced, which is about Daniel Jones and the Senate torture report. And very recently it was revealed that he wrote a Kylo Ren movie for Soderbergh to direct that has not, that probably won't get made. But I learned something interesting about him. Do you guys know what Scott Z. Burns' full name is?
I was wondering what does the Z stand for? I was wondering that.
His full name is actually short for... short for Coen Scott Z. Burns.
Cool.
Wow.
Ian, that's the joke that I texted you the other day.
For months, I believe.
I came up with that 6 months ago. I've been sitting on that.
Well worth the wait.
Thank you
let me
so
say.
much.
Yeah.
So, Dan,
Yes.
what is your relationship to this movie and to Steven Soderbergh broadly? I know you're something of a movie guy.
I am, and I love Soderbergh, and I consider him like your John Huston or you know, what's another guy like that? Robert Aldrich, where he makes a ton of movies.
Yeah.
He can kind of do anything, and they're all pretty good.
Eastwood in our
Yeah. Clint Eastwood, arguably
perspective.
the same. And that's like, he's like, to me, an old-fashioned type of Hollywood director where he really can sort of do any genre. He can do any sort of movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also commercially appealing, you know, in a way, but it's also not dumbing down. He's a really impressive director, and I really like him. And The Informant, I don't remember when I saw it. I definitely didn't see it when it first came out. It was a few years later. And I thought it was so funny. I thought it was the best Matt Damon performance I'd ever seen. I still think that. And I love the writing. I love how it's structured. And I have to give a special shout out to Scott Bakula. I think he is sort of the undersung aspect of this movie. He is such a funny straight man in this.
He's really good. He's really weird looking always.
But he's like 80% reaction shots, his role, but it's an essential role. Yeah, I agree
it's
with you.
fascinating because I would say that the book predominantly is from Brian Shepard's perspective. Like it doesn't give background on him, but he's the guy who's mostly reacting and being like, what the fuck is going on with this guy? Because you can't, Whitaker's so slippery. The movie obviously focuses on the more interesting guy, but I would say that like half the book is Shepard in meetings and listening to tapes and stuff going, what the fuck is he doing? Like, why is he doing this? And also Bakula and Joel McHale, they're both playing real guys, but like a lot of the characters have been condensed because this is like a 7-year investigation or something. So you also, in the book, you see the way that just like because of careers, like people just get handed off to different departments. They retire, this, that, the other, which is an interesting wrinkle. Not that it's interesting as a fucking dork. So I understand why they don't include it in the movie.
But for a screenwriter, you're going to be so confused. So you have to condense it. And,
Burns talked about that. There's like 100 different versions of this movie you could write because Whitaker's, there's so many weird alleyways. Like they don't get into the fact that he faked his master's degree or something.
Well, yeah, they also don't cover the suicides, which I think what tends darker for the whole movie. 2 attempted suicides. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny. The movie's funny.
Very funny.
Ian, you've seen this before? You like this movie?
I have. I liked it a lot the first time I saw it. I had not given it this level of thought nor level of investigation. And pairing it with those things, I liked it even more. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I mean, I think we must talk about the choice to cast this world of comedians. I think the three of us are aware of a lot of these people on screen, the Andy Daly's, the different folks, Scott
Tompkins.
Adsits,
Tom Papa.
Exactly. And I think combining that with this sort of like version of Tom Ripley as a executive who is successful and maybe doesn't even know that he's lying, which I guess is kind of a Ripley thing too sometimes.
I didn't even make the connection.
That's really funny.
I mean, it's obviously the same guy, but you're right. Yeah, he's like an idiot Mr. Ripley. Like,
yes.
Right.
I mean, I like this movie quite a bit. It's one of the ones I was surprised when I've been telling folks that we're doing Soderbergh. So many people have said that like The Informant is one of their favorites, and they're so excited for The Informant, which I like the movie. I just don't think of it as like one of the prominent Soderberghs, but I think it's got maybe like a kind of Netflix, or I don't know if it plays on cable, but I think this is one of those rewatchable things that people like to go back to.
Well, and I have a theory on that, which is that Matt Damon is so watchable in this that that's what is really drawing people in, where even the way he will walk into a room and stand with his hands on his hips makes me laugh, like as Mark Whitaker, where he's just this he's so confident in what he's saying at all times and having no basis for having that confidence. We find out as the movie goes on, he's lying most of the time.
Right.
But he has this weird mix of that and then like, you know, the scene where they're filming the secret meeting and he moves the guy out of the way of the camera. You know, so he's not blocking it. So he has some skills too, right? Like that he can do. And that's very funny. And I think also, if I had to guess, I was surprised watching this. Obviously, I do a podcast with the idea of how the mob explains America and the world. Yes. This is a mob movie. This is This is a movie about a mob family and about a snitch. And it touches on a lot of things that I've thought about making this podcast, including as the more I do this, the less I trust government witnesses, I have to admit.
Yeah. I mean, let's get right into it. I'm so excited to talk about this. I should say for the listener, if you're not already listening to The Outfit, which is the podcast that Dan does with Alana Hope Levinson over there at HeadGum, I really love the show. I think if you like the parts of this show where we get into some historical research stuff, it's all of that and better done. And they're not soft on cops, which I appreciate for a crime.
I'm going to say, as a touch point, I listened to the whole podcast, but the Sammy Gravano episode specifically about a rat, about an informant, the resonance with some of the stuff we're going to discuss today was
it's kind of similar in a weird way. Thank you both. The
9/11 episode, the World Trade Center connection with the mob episode was a real I felt sort of like I was on the bench with Donald Sutherland and JFK. Like I'm getting a little bit behind the scenes. So check it out, folks. It's a good show.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we were talking about this a little bit, Dan, but you know, who's the chicken and who's the egg in your mind? Like, are mob guys imitating big business? Is big business imitating the mob? Are they the same guys?
I mean, that's such a great question. And I don't quite know the answer to that, right? Like, I ask myself that all the time. Is the mob an aberration from capitalism, or is it the ultimate version of it? Mm-hmm. And I don't entirely know, right? But what I can say is they learn from each other. You know, I'm researching. Yeah. We're doing a 10-episode series on Al Capone right now. And
hell yeah.
What was the insight that his mentors gave him? It was that we could run this like a big business. We could run it like a corporation and structure it that way. But then the flip side is, who are they basing it off of? They're basing it off of guys who were mobsters first and bought respectability. So, you know, right. It's sort of this Ouroboros or whatever, you know, where it's I don't quite know, but Archer Daniels Midland, which is the corporation, the agribusiness corporation depicted in this movie, is functioning like a mafia family in terms of price fixing, which we have seen. I've talked about a lot on the show. The Concrete Club in New York fixing the prices of concrete. Garbage. We have an episode coming forth about the garbage industry on Long Island, fixing rates for garbage pickup. So this is something that is done by mafia families. And the reason is it drives up the cost for everyone else. They keep the money. We pay the price, right? And this movie, though, it's on a scale, this price fixing, because it's additives to food and livestock feed and all this. The scale is beyond what any mafia family could ever hope to inflict, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's astronomical, and it's on kind of like I don't know what you call that process. The means by which we all have microplastics in our balls now, where like they're working with the raw materials that are involved in all of
it's so high up
food production.
Sort of the vertical development chain. Yeah. I see what you're saying. That it's
well, that's it, right? Like, why did mobsters do labor racketeering of, like, you know, Teamsters, for instance, right? Truckers, because everything relies on a truck, right?
Yeah, if you bought it, a truck brought it. I learned that from my friend Jimmy Hoffa. Right?
And so the idea is, if you control that choke point, then really you don't just control the trucking industry, you control every industry. And so these guys are, I mean, same thing with Warren Buffett. What is Warren Buffett's business model?
Yeah,
it's to monopolize small but integral sort of choke points.
Right.
You know,
when the movie cuts this character out, but Howard Buffett, his son, was like, I think on the board of ADM, is a big part of the story, was also like having cold feet, but like I wonder if he told that to Kurt Eichenwald, you know, credibly, but he was also considering becoming an informant.
Yeah,
and
right.
like Buffett's in there, and also talking about there's some important seeds sown about how, well, Warren would never do something like this. Warren would
give
not
me a
get
fucking break.
into this.
Right.
Yeah. Is speaking of Warren Buffett, speaking of ADM and the outfit, is it a coincidence that a lot of this is happening in and around Chicago? Is that just because center of agriculture? Is the mob there because of agriculture? Chicago and Kansas City, I know, you know, big transport hubs and stuff.
I mean, that's a funny thing, right? That it is. I mean, knowing used to live in Chicago, you know, and knowing Illinois as I do, Decatur might as well be in Saudi Arabia. I mean, to a degree, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It is such a world apart. But I do know that ADM is now headquartered in Chicago.
Sure.
What I will say is organized crime obviously never as big in rural areas for a variety of reasons, but also because it doesn't need to be, you know?
Right.
There are gangsters that exist in rural areas. They just don't exactly look the same way or have the same jobs, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, there's if listeners haven't seen the film Prime Cut, which is about like
that's an insane movie.
Kansas City mob and meat production. Gene Hackman and Lee Marvin are like sort of homoerotic brothers in that. Ian and I we relate to that film.
That is a weird movie.
Check it out. Good film. But yeah, I mean, there's I'm very interested in the way that this movie, like, I guess aesthetically distances these guys from the mob. Like, you could change a couple of words and put everybody in double-breasted suits, and most of the film could be a mob movie if everybody has a different accent, right?
Well, the only thing I would say is significantly for me in the casting of the comedians, in the way the whole story of this film is told. I don't know that it's trying to say that there's like an elegance. I mean, obviously, there's a great emphasis put on global development and the multinational nature of all capitalist production now. I mean, we see many scenes of him traveling to Germany to talk to people. A lot of the collusion about price fixing goes on with Japanese and Korean companies, who I think are, you know, pretty perfect encapsulations of like post-war capitalist development, right? Those are the countries we put forward as like models of look how the United States can help you leap ahead or something.
Yeah.
But I think in presenting everybody as kind of a semi-aware, self-serving, often bumbling opposite of a cool operator, right? We have in like the security head, in Mick Andreas, in Dwayne Andreas, they're all, I think it reminds me of figures in the outfit, but not because they're close in terms of slickness, but rather I think when you tell these stories, Dan, about these figures, they don't sound slick to me at all. They sound like sort of like self-aggrandizing, often easily tricked, or too satisfied with their own system, thinking that there's no way it's ever going to collapse. And so I think you don't need it to be closer in the sense of like making these guys tougher, making these guys look like they are knowing criminals, because in some ways I think that's the veneer that the mob guys put on, which hides the reality, which is much closer to this in my mind. I don't know if you think that's accurate, Dan.
Yes, I do. And I think it speaks to the fact that, you know, what is the asset that mobsters have? It's not that they're smarter than other people. It's that they're more vicious. It's that they're willing to do things that other guys just won't do. And so they're never the toughest guys in the neighborhood, right? They're just the guys who will stab you in the back, who will be the slimiest, you know? And that's what I think of with the mob. And that's what I think of with, you know, when I look at guys like Bill Ackman is not smart. You know, the New York billionaire who...
Wait a second.
Demonstrably, speaking of Twitter,
First I'm hearing of this.
Right. And he's born on second base, thought he hit a double, right? He was born to a real estate developer. And he's not a smart guy. What is he? He has no morals. He has no scruples. He has no conscience. So he has no problem making money any way he can, and that's very mob-like. And you're right. I love it. I mean, first off, there's so many great character actors in this movie.
Yeah.
You mentioned the security guy, who's Tom Wilson, who's the bad guy from Back to the Future.
Yeah, he's Biff, yeah.
Who I think is great in this as the security guy who he kind of sucks, right? Like he's supposed to be keeping a control on things for the bosses, and he's kind of incompetent, you know?
I mean, the casting it's almost exclusively comedic actors, straight up stand-ups in these smaller roles. I think I've seen Soderbergh talk about how this kind of guy can give you one line really well, because often their job is to say one line as funny as possible. But I'm curious what you guys think about, you know, on the one hand, that kind of makes this whole thing look ridiculous. Also, stand-up comics tend to be funny looking, and so maybe there's a kind of a deglamorization of that. Like Tom Papa and Alan Havey they're not movie star, you know, matinee idols. But does that make it seem sillier? Does that take some of the bite out of it? Or do we care less that this is going on because these guys are such goofballs? Or does it up the kind of absurd factor so we respect them less? I don't know how I feel about it necessarily.
I think Ian hit upon it, right? Like, let's deglamorize it. Let's focus on how ridiculous this is and how the pretenses these men put on, right? Like, I thought Alan Havey is great as the FBI boss because he is so not a G-man, you know?
Yeah.
And also, like, the FBI is you know, I've had to write a lot about them. They're a very funny institution in that their agents think it's awesome that they're FBI agents. Like,
right.
Like if you talk to other investigators, they're like the show horses. They're the show offs, you know, and they have this institutional thing about that, which, you know, they get it a little bit in it. The U.S. attorney saying to them, you don't have enough, you know, you need more. Right.
Yeah.
And Ann Cusack as the prosecutor, I think, is great in this. To cast she's perfect. That's like perfect casting. That's what that assistant prosecutor in Chicago is going to be like. Right.
And she's, of course, Chicago royalty, the Cusack family. Yeah.
And that's perfect. And she's going to tell these FBI agents, you do not have enough to convince a jury of this, you know? Right. And, you know, so listen, some of them don't work as well as others, Patton Oswalt, but, you know, but Tony Hale is a defense attorney. Perfect.
He's so good.
He might be my favorite choice in the whole film. I know I agree with your Scott Bakula reaction shots, but Tony Hale, when he's listening to like how many tapes you made, he says like, I made like 200 tapes, and Tony Hale's only line is, oh.
He's like, so good. He does a lot of like Buster Bluth like hand stuff. Maybe that's just Tony Hale sort of hand stuff. He is an extraordinary presence in everything. But also, I love him.
I like that he is a good lawyer who is trying to help Mark as his private defense attorney, but just is completely exasperated with how insane this guy is. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I am surprised that the defense team didn't consider suicide themselves, just based on like having to deal with this guy.
Right.
Did you note who plays Tony Hale's sort of assistant attorney, Bob Zaderman?
I was wondering because I liked him too, and I didn't know him.
His name is Richard Stephen Horvitz, and he is the voice of Invader Zim.
That's true. Yes.
Wow. Isn't that insane? He does a lot of like voice acting stuff, like in a lot of cartoons and video games and stuff. But I was like, this guy's got a kind of a silly voice and sort of looks meek. Like, why cast this guy? Turns out he's Zim. I liked him a lot. I think the casting of the Smothers Brothers is it does a subtle thing where, you know, the head of the company and the judge who's presiding over this are essentially the same guy. They're related if they aren't literally, and you know, you get into a lot of this in the book, like the interrelationships between these people in their business dealings and their personal dealings, in sometimes literally being like family. But like, this is all fixed. This is rigged. Right. And also it's rigged with old blonde white guys who were on TV in the 70s. Like, everyone is father knows best, and they're always going to be in power. And they're still in power, in fact, as their faces rot off their skulls.
I think it was, I was really impressed that the movie, first off, how it reveals that Mark Whitaker is not reliable, right?
Yeah.
But also that they do a really tricky thing of, and I give credit, I think, to the screenwriter in particular for this, of showing how Mark is committing crimes on his own and does go down for those, but also the fix is kind of in, right? Like, you know, clearly him getting more time than these guys, there's something weird about that. That, you know, the guy who kickstarts the whole investigation does more time than them. Did they know about these? Was it embezzlement? Was it something else? You know, it is left kind of unclear.
Yeah, the dollar amount is never the same twice in the film. Yeah,
right. So that's I like the ambiguity of that too, which is not something usually find in a Hollywood movie, you know?
Yeah. I will say, just to do some corroboration, I read this other book, Rats in the Grain, by James Lieber, which is another account of this same story. But it seems like he also did some independent research. And look, this is a rare instance. We're not big fans of the FBI on this podcast, but...
Yeah, check out our episode on J. Edgar, for example.
Exactly. But I will say, it seems like in both accounts, both the Informant and Rats in the Grain, they talk about these FBI agents going to bat for Mark even after all this stuff comes out for precisely the reasons you're talking about, Dan. Because, I mean, even I think the Attorney General, Ashcroft, Bush's Attorney General, also participated. Yeah, I mean, a monster, but he was participating. Like he was backing the pardon because even he seemed to recognize, like, this is strange. Like, this guy's doing 9 years. McAndreas did 3 years. And, you know, what does it mean for future whistleblowers, right? That was one of the quotes that was thrown out. Like, if we can't back this guy in this moment, even though he did this terrible thing, obviously he did seem to steal $9 million, but it also seemed like maybe the Andreases were aware of this. But what does it mean for the future? Because the way he's characterized is like the most cooperative witness the FBI has ever had, maybe like the most useful single witness they've ever had in like an economic crime investigation.
And also like clearly unwell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things I love in the film, to add to this sort of like you're talking about, Dan, the slow unfolding of his detachment from reality, is the choice, I assume screenwriting choice, to include Mark's thoughts, which are kind of a jumble of, I would say, like high philosophical social analysis, the most passing thought that sometimes is lent like a certain profundity. He talks about the steam off of an indoor pool in the wintertime. I couldn't help but think, like, you know, there is something to a guy who can't differentiate. He has no hierarchy of the weight of the things he's thinking. And it does seem like that is the way he's moving through the world. I think it's like Diary of a Madman stuff of like, this guy, he says, you know, the birds eat the worms, the cars eat the birds, the rest eat the car. He just sort of like goes off on these little mental explorations. And to him, that's as real.
There's like you know, reading through the book, you can just tell that Whitaker is like not paying attention or whatever, or you can, you know, the FBI agents can tell that what they're saying is not getting through to him, and the movie adds what is in this guy's head, sometimes like obscuring the dialogue, which I really like.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great aspect to it, that he's always going. Right. He's just always going. And there's something about that with hustlers and with mobsters, too, where it's all Donald Trump is the same way. It's always, it has to be going on to the next thing, because if he stops,
it all catches up
and it's all going to fall apart. And there's that wonderful scene towards the end of the movie where now we're hearing Mark's inner dialogue, and it's him coming up with a lie to rebut what's what he's facing.
That's really astounding stuff. Yeah.
It's such a great scene, and he's just running out of road finally. He can't come up with the lies fast enough to catch up with reality anymore.
Right.
It's really effective.
Yeah, Melanie Linsky, I think, also does a wonderful job in that scene, because she, I mean,
incapable of doing otherwise, I think, Melanie Linsky.
I think you're right. But I think she's a perfect enabler in the sense that, like, she is sort of like has a normal person's ability to stretch the truth, right? She sort of believes what she wants to believe about Mark, although she was also the impetus in real life for him even beginning to be a cooperating witness.
Saying anything.
Right? Yeah.
But the fact that in that moment, she has been on Mark's side. She believed the extremely obvious lie of the kidnapping story, all this bullshit. But the moment that she is starting to recognize, like, well, this guy is just fabricating. It's just spinning out of him. I'm believing this stuff because I want to, because I care about this person. It's such a brutal moment.
It's all cramped. His leg. Yeah, I mean the movie it's predominantly a comedy, and Soderbergh and Burns both talk about how they're like Soderbergh had made ERIN Brockovich not 10 years before this, and The Insider had come out the same year and is sort of like the gold standard whistleblower movie, great film.
Yep.
But they wanted to differentiate it from that, and so they thought, well, this guy is, first of all, kind of ridiculous. Like, this is a funny story in addition to a tragic story and an infuriating story and all that. So they go for the comedy route, and they add in this inner monologue stuff that's all from Burns and maybe Soderbergh and Damon. I don't know, but it's like whole cloth, and it's great. And so the film is mostly like a caper, but it does get at this question of to what extent does one's poor behavior invalidate one's good behavior? To what extent does, and obviously like this is inherent to the question of the whistleblower, right? Like, usually you're involved in the thing before you say, I'm uncomfortable with this and I want to stop it. And in Mark's case, also in the case of Jeffrey Wigand, the guy, The Insider is about, like, he seems like he had a pretty shitty relationship with his ex-wife, and he like, I don't know, I think he like had a shoplifting conviction and stuff.
He maybe put the bullet in the mailbox, I remember. Like, he might have played things like that,
Yep.
Yeah.
Where but he's like undoubtedly freaking out because like a giant, more powerful than the mob force is trying to stop him from doing something. So like he's under duress, right?
Right.
And the film is asking us to kind of to think about to what extent does character have anything to do with like the righteousness of an action, which I think is an interesting thing. Kind of reminds me of what Soderbergh's getting at with Che a little bit. Like, this is a ongoing Soderbergh question where he depicts like liars a lot, con men, and I don't know, it's compelling to me, as a guy who does a podcast where I tell people how they should like feel and behave, who also is kind of a schmuck sometimes. I relate to Whitaker in this way. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Well, it's, there are clearly good qualities in him, right? I mean, look, he gave the FBI what they had on the price fixing thing. That would not have happened without him, right? And incidentally, this probably goes on in every major corporation in the world in one form or another, and no one ever looks for it, right? And no one ever talks about it. I would hazard to guess. I mean,
yeah, it's the story that is sort of told about this now, about the Lyceum price fixing scandal specifically, is that it like kicked off.
Yeah, exactly.
More and more investigations. It sort of made price fixing and antitrust investigation hot. Which is a net good for the world, I think, that Whitaker's done.
Well, and it speaks to, who's behind it, right? Because when I guess maybe this was 10 or 15 years ago, that there was a scandal with an interest rate set by the Bank of London or the Bank of England, the Lieber, the London International. I don't know enough about finance to remember. But what was happening was these big banks were manipulating the interest rate that was set, which was potentially affecting one way or another, like every mortgage in America,
Jesus. Yeah.
So it becomes, but then the big banks, there was some evidence that maybe the Bank of England was directing them to do this. So it's like,
right.
What the fuck we live in a world, it seems like, run by these guys, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about this on your show with Trump a lot, like we literally do. Trump is like playing he's using the Capone playbook.
Yeah.
And you Dan, you mentioned earlier, we were talking about the sort of chicken egg question, and you were wondering whether this is like inherent to, is this capitalism working perfectly? I think yes. I think this is like inherent to capitalism. This sounds like something I would say. This is a likely opinion for me to have. But I do think that, like, given the rules of the game, given what, and even if we're talking about, I don't know, a corporate board's like obligation to its shareholders,
Right.
like they should be trying to get around regulations as much as possible to maximize profit just based on like the logic of what they're doing. And not that that's not extremely fucked to do and evil, and not that I'm not thinking about certain French devices that might be used to stop them. But that is kind of like, that's what we're asking them to do in the first place. And then you ask them to like, well, but follow the rules.
Right,
but follow some of the
right,
rules
right.
that are directly in opposition to the goals that we're telling you are like the best thing to do in the world. There's entire schools training you how to make the most money, but also stop yourself from making as much money as you could.
Yeah, I mean, to try to synthesize both your points here, on the one hand, I will say, even as a committed leftist, communist, whatever, I don't want to characterize it. I don't want to be so blanket that it sounds like every person operating within capitalism, any capitalist is doing so with the intention of being corrupt or stealing from people.
Right.
But I think, as you're saying, Jake, the problem is that in a system where you're competing with other firms in economics terms, your goal is to do something to outcompete them, either offer a lower price or have greater labor efficiency or whatever.
Better product,
whatever.
Yeah.
The edge is that you offer. That means that even if we establish laws saying no corruption, whatever, you're saying no, hey, it's bad to do wage theft to your laborers or something. Of course, the people who figure out how to circumvent those laws, how to soften those laws, how to ignore those laws and just break the law and maybe just eat a fine, they're going to succeed. And the
Right.
people who are the ethical operators, because I do believe that there are people who say, I'm going to make McDonald's, but we pay everybody really well and the cows are treated well and we don't slash and burn in Brazil. And I'm making ethical McDonald's. But the problem is your product's going to cost 3 times as much and your business is going to fail, and normal McDonald's is going to absolutely swallow you up.
The Founder is kind of about that, by the way, which is another similar movie in a weird way, I think. But sorry, please continue.
No. You're absolutely right. And I just think, to go back to what you were saying, Dan, of the difficulty of nailing down the guilty party, right? This is the famous thing with wage theft. Like, who do you blame? Do you blame the direct manager who said clock out and then keep working? Do you blame the VP of the region who told the manager, like, you need to get better labor efficiency, like your labor margins aren't acceptable, right? Now, he didn't tell the guy to commit wage theft, but he suggested in other terms. Is it the shareholders who are demanding that the company, Marriott, for example, just to pick a random employer that I used to work for, that they're saying, the shareholders saying we want at the end of the year, the proxy statement or whatever, we want to see returns that speak to our investment goals. And so, I'm not trying to say boo-hoo to these CEOs or something, but I do think it becomes a murky question of where does the culpability begin? And I think when we look at somebody like Mark, that's I think is a good distillation of these questions and saying like, well, yeah, he's a selfish guy. He was trying to, he embezzled $9 to $12 million because he wanted that for his life. Yeah. And he was part of a price fixing scheme and also part of a maybe like lysine germ fraud scheme as a separate thing. But is this, like you're saying, Jake, is this unique? Is this what the system incentivizes? And then how much can we blame somebody, especially a mentally ill person, but really anybody, for sort of buying into the scheme that's been created?
Well, and I think that hits upon like all these guys who Mr. A1 capitalists, the last thing that these guys want is what they're saying capitalism is to be the case, right?
Right.
Because, they talk about competition, right? Like, I'll take the example of the garbage industry in New York. An independent garbage hauler comes up with a way of being competitive where he's going to recycle the paper and the cardboard, which means he can deliver or he can pick up trash at a lower rate. So he should be succeeding, right? Except the mob haulers are going to set fire to his trucks.
Right.
So that solves that problem, that's not what it's about here, right? Like, that's just what they're going to do to deal with that threat to their economic competitiveness. This is not about being competitive. these fucking guys like Peter Thiel, I mean, they want to suck as much money out of the government as possible. You know, Mr. Libertarian, right? He's a fucking defense contractor. We're burning billions of dollars for Palantir and all this shit, which I bet doesn't even work, by the way.
Some combination of evil and totally useless. Yeah.
Right. And it's just setting fire to it essentially for the taxpayer, right? But it's always going to be someone else left holding the bag. And Mark is a cog in that who, you know, and he reminds me of in Sicily, the Cosa Nostra had basically no informants till really the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. One of them who did provide one of the rare bits of insight into it was a guy who had a mental breakdown and had a religious experience and was sort of mentally ill. And he gave one of the first accounts from inside the Cosa Nostra.
Wow.
So maybe there's something to that where every so often a guy like this can reveal something like that, you know?
Yeah, that's something I think about fairly often. And again, like wouldn't have come up to me at like my workplace or anything like that. But like the way that people who are doing bad non-leftist stuff to you, people who are stealing your wages, people who are trying to get you to skip your legally required break, they aren't always like, they're not the evil guys with the marionette controls in their hands. Sometimes they're just like some fucking guy, and they're also like compromised by their psychology, and they're maybe not smart. Maybe they think they're doing the right thing by somebody else. Like there's all these complicating factors, and it's easy to think about people who are exploiting others as exclusively ghouls from They Live or whatever, who have the master plan. Right. But then sometimes they're just some guy, which doesn't make it better or worse that they're doing it, but it's like, I guess it just sort of changes up how we should think about these things. And then, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's the crime writer Don Winslow said something I always think of, which is, you know, he's met all these criminals and these really horrible people in his research and all this, and none of them thought they were the bad guy, you know?
Right.
All of them had a justification for what they were doing and why they did it.
Every man has his reasons. Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And I think, you know, look, Dick Cheney just died. I liked the movie Vice.
He what? Fuck.
He has passed through the otherworld check-in station, I'm afraid. And
from Coco? Dick Cheney's with all the guys from Coco now. He's a
big skeleton. You know,
we'll never forget him
playing a guitar.
Yeah.
Huge Coco fan. But I thought Vice was pretty good on that in terms of this is probably what this guy thought. You know, and he's a monster, but he probably thought, in addition to all his power plays and all this thirst for power he had his whole life, that he was protecting people and that it's a thankless job and that's what I have to do, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's sometimes I hesitate to think about how much Trump seems to love his ballroom because it's so like humanizing to just be like a weird man with a weird fixation. Yeah, it's hard to kind of to square the circle for me. And I like that the movie doesn't, like, we kind of hate and love Mark the whole time. You feel bad for him. He seems sort of like an innocent, like a Chauncey Gardner or something. And then sometimes he seems like a full on, you know, the Marvin Hamlish score kind of gives it away. Sometimes he seems like a full on con man a la The Sting. Although we like those guys.
I was going to say that the Hamlish score I want to talk about because I think it's employed surgically. I mean, Hamlish, who made the score for the Swimmer film, I think you and I love a lot.
The Burt Lancaster film, yeah, great film.
Exactly. And also like Take the Money and Run and The Sting and these other films.
Yeah. We should say this very quickly. The Swimmer, one of the most beautiful Blu-rays I've ever seen. The Informant Blu-ray, one of the most notoriously shitty-looking Blu-rays ever produced.
Well, and that's just a quick aside. Steven Soderbergh got very into handheld digital cameras. In a way that makes me want to kill something. So
yeah, we got to talk about the color yellow in a minute. After Ian, sorry, you were in the middle of something.
No, it's okay. I mean, just the Hamlish score is like bringing in this sense of levity, also this sense of sort of like timeless caper, like, you know, all criminals are innocents and the real criminals are the players behind them or something. And I think it's wonderful because you're talking about his thoughts overlapping with dialogue or overpowering dialogue. There are moments where the dialogue drops out, like between Joel McHale and Scott Bakula. We just don't even hear their conversation, like post polygraph. I think we just get the Hamlish score while we're watching these guys. And I think it's wonderful because it's like both a respect for the audience. Like, look, you guys know what this conversation is. The conversation is this dude is obviously lying. He failed a polygraph. I mean, polygraph's not trustworthy, and yet somehow he failed it so hard that we just know that, everything about this is false. But it's saying, all right, I'm trying to remind you, like, where are we in this world? We are in Mark's understanding of this thing, which is a sort of exciting. I mean, he keeps referencing CLAYTON and Tom Clancy. And
the firm comes up in the book actually way earlier. Eichenwald has him getting the idea to sort of play both sides from watching The Firm, which is so funny.
That's so funny. I mean, and to the point with the score, anytime it would start to sound like the James Bond music was so funny to me. Of this idiot showing his gardener his bug in his briefcase.
0014.
The 0014 line is from the book, so at least Eichenwald made that up, but it might have been from Whitaker. Yeah, I mean the score, Soderbergh apparently told Marvin Hamlish, this is his final score, he's an old man. Soderbergh apparently told Hamlish to write the score that Mark Whitaker would hear in his head. Like that's scoring this guy's perspective, not like ours. Yeah. And it's really funny. And I think the juxtaposition of that with the like extraordinarily drab early 90s office milieu and the everyone's wearing the same shirt and the shitty ties.
Well, and then I find it funny when he's jet setting around the world to go to rooms that are the exact same everywhere. That's so
Airport
funny
lounges.
to me.
Yeah.
Right. My dad has worked in like corporate law for a long time, and he's talked about like, as a kid, I'd be like, wow, how was Stockholm? And he's said like it looks exactly like Omaha. It's the same.
Right.
It's first of all, shout out to J.W. Marriott, great guy.
Yep.
But it's like the same. It's literally a conference room designed by like the same firm.
Yeah.
And you get to maybe see something from the airport, and that's another really funny thing to me in this movie is like these corn-fed doofuses jet setting and like kind of big dogging like the Japanese businessmen.
Like
There's more the European guys.
Corporate conflicts that they're having.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just like Black Rain. Did they say that?
Yeah. And Rising Sun comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Black Rain, great movie. I like Black Rain a lot. But yeah, the sort of dowdiness of it, the frumpiness of it is really.
But also that being sort of a mask to the amounts of money we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
Well, and this again, a very mob thing to me is take the most anodyne, boring sounding industry, and there is so much fucking money to be made in it that this dowdiness is like a smokescreen for it.
Right. That's the problem too. Is like you were talking about the London. The bank
Lieber,
scandal, and I was like literally I had to force myself to listen to the words you were saying because they're so dull.
Right.
And I think that like I also rewatched Michael Clayton this week because produced by Soderbergh, another sort of agriculture malfeasance film. But that movie, one of the reasons I think it is another dad classic, and one of the things that turns it into a thriller is that they kill people.
Yeah.
And that's like the difference between the mob and these guys, and the reason that there's a lot more movies about the mob than about some dudes in a conference room is because like they kill people, and that's more cinematic and exciting.
Well, and I also have a theory about that, which is part of the reason we like mob stuff so much is the guys who are involved run a strong risk of either being killed or going to prison for life.
Right.
And there's no comeuppance like that in a movie like The Informant.
Right. Yeah,
they get away with it, really,
The best you can hope for is like the sort of condescending Adam McKay postscript where they're like, and these guys didn't go to jail. Which like, he's right.
Yeah.
But like, there's something sort of corny about that. I do have a bit of recent ADM stuff to share, just so everyone knows that these guys, they finally got what was coming to them. $86 billion in revenue last year.
Yes.
In 2017, the Department of Energy and ADM began a carbon capture and storage program where liquefied carbon from ADM's biofuel facility would be injected into sandstone deposits.
Yeah.
I think that literally means they just like pump it underground and sandstone holds onto it. The DOE put $141 million into this. The total private cost share was $66 million, which is not just ADM. So ADM put less than $66 million.
And also they made the waste.
They made the waste.
Right.
The amount of carbon stored this way only reached about half the project's goal. Emissions from the facility still went up that year. And the city of Decatur, NEOM, the NEOM of the Midwest, they struck a deal with ADM. It's like
which
the
owns
same
the
guys.
town, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm curious. I would love to do a compare and contrast between the Decatur like board of supervisors and the Anaheim board of supervisors, which is just all Disneyland guys.
Right.
But so Decatur struck a deal with ADM where ADM was allowed to inject this liquefied carbon beneath city-owned land at a cost of $450 an acre.
Mm-hmm.
And then within the year, the EPA was like, hey, this shit is leaking into the city's drinking water, ERIN Brockovich. And ADM just suspended the project. Whoopsie doopsie. I guess we'll just spew it into the air again.
Yeah.
They're currently now hoy en dia being investigated by Argentina for, with other companies, tax dodging up to as much as $1 billion US in like whatever import taxes or something. In 2013, a subsidiary of ADM pled guilty to conspiracy to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act.
So bribing foreign officials.
Yes, in Ukraine and Venezuela. In 2021, the Washington Post found that ADM sold land to the incoming Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, which this is, Dan, as you talked about.
That's just some classic. That's like old school, you know?
Folding back. Yeah, it's kind of charming, like a Marvin Hamlish score.
Yeah.
And then the fines, they're paying out hundreds of millions of dollars for all kinds of stuff, but they're now number 35 on the Fortune 500 list. Like this is... It's nothing. It's a big amount of money. It kind of gets at the problem, the human brain comprehending large numbers problem, where you're like, damn, they paid $400 million. They really got these guys.
I remember I had a substitute teacher in high school, a regular substitute teacher who was a very smart guy. And I remember he said to me once, he thought the death penalty should only exist for white collar crimes. Yeah. Because it actually would deter them from occurring.
This was Mr. Xi Jinping. Is that was the name of your...
That, you know, I knew, speaking of which, I mean, it's funny you bring him up. Spent a lot of time in Iowa, Xi Jinping.
He did.
And developed ties with Iowa as an agricultural, superpower, right?
I've seen those pictures. Yeah, it's kind of cute. Yeah.
And speaking to that point of like the importance of this global market, I mean, it's so funny. The tariffs, who opposes the tariffs? It's pig farmers in Iowa who are like, whoa, wait a minute. We sell all these pigs to China.
They actually understand.
And soybean farmers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they actually understand what a tariff is. Right. Because it changes their monthly bottom line. Man, these guys are such fucking shitheads. Yeah, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I want to talk about it while we're on this subject. Dwayne Andreas, the guy, Tom Smothers in the film. He doesn't have a huge presence on screen, but I think he's a fascinating figure that I didn't know much about. He was raised by like ex-Mennonites. So he he later received the Horatio Alger Award, right? He's like this picture of being a self-made man, quote unquote. But he is the guy who made Archer Daniels Midland what it is. He's called the Soybean King because he sort of, I think he the employees grew tenfold or something under his leadership. He's fascinating because he's a soy boy. I mean, he's the original soy boy.
He's the soy boy, yeah.
And he is a figure. He is like a Musk or something. He has donated to both the Democratic and Republican parties, or had going on like 50 years. He was on JFK committees, LBJ advisory boards. Reagan brought him on as like the head of a international development through business committee. Basically, the sense of like, how do we assist other nations through private development? And I think this is fascinating because, look, in some ways, I what I heard about his involvement in the price fixing is that he may not have known about it, that maybe it was his son's idea, right? But I think speaking to this idea that whether these are people who are innocent of specific crimes, right now I'm reading this book called Everybody Loves a Good Drought, which is a book about India and like rural poverty and the experience
those
of rural
farmers, the farmer suicide epidemic there, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a fascinating book because it is like anecdotes of, or like vignettes of different rural experiences related to education, related to programs for development, where they just follow like a single instance and highlight how absurd, how poorly managed, whether it's like bureaucratic incompetence, whether it's corruption, whether it's conscious malfeasance. But I think what it highlighted for me is this sense that, like you were saying, Jake, there doesn't have to be a global conspiracy for there to be a globally corrupting influence that does trickle down to every single person on the planet. I mean, You're talking about some of the poorest people in the world. And the first vignette in the book is tragic but wonderful, where you had these farmers in this area, very, very poor area of India, who were given Jersey bull semen as part of this development plan. So like their
that's
cows,
some of the most valuable like per ounce stuff in the world, like bull semen for real.
And this was like a combination of an NGO, the Indian government, and some of these like sort of like private development goals. And what they did, because they didn't want the native bulls mixing with the cows after they got the Jersey semen involved, so they castrated all this like local endemic variation of bulls. And they were anticipating that like within the year there would be all these calves, the dairy production would skyrocket. What actually happened is that it was a catastrophe. All of the children of the Jersey bull semen died, all the calves, because they'd castrated these local bulls who were like uniquely resistant. These bulls were sort of famous within India for being able to produce like 4 or 5 offspring regularly. So it was just like, you know, this is like tragedy on top of tragedy. These like criminally poor people are intervened upon basically, and it's just like a nightmare for them. And I mean, to me, this is representative, not because I think that the people who did this program anticipated this failure, but I just think that when you are getting involved on this type of scale and you're intervening, some of this is inevitable. And I think maybe my question for you guys is, what do we do to have robust institutions that operate on like a national or global scale? Because I mean, part of me does think that there's efficiency of scale and there's these benefits to having centralized production and to having supply chains that take advantage of all the
and
the
these
local...
are things that you have like firsthand experience with dealing with farms in Mexico,
right? And look, I was I mean, without global inputs, it's very, very hard. I mean, we couldn't produce the amount of crops that we need to support the global population without some of this like big ag style production. And yet, I mean, time and time again, we see the same problems: the poisoning of the Gulf of Mexico, the loss of biodiversity that we like will never come back from in the future of the planet. So I don't know. I'm curious, like how do we produce institutions that don't fall prey to these people, whether they're bad actors, whether they're idiots, whatever it is?
I mean, I have a very unoriginal answer, which is that, again, talking about the garbage industry, notoriously mobbed up industry in New York, what was the thing that the mob-controlled garbage haulers feared more than anything? It was the townships taking over garbage collection themselves and saying, "No, thank you. We're not using any private firms anymore. Goodbye. We're gonna make a sanitation department that does it ourselves." Because then there's no money for them. You know, then there's no scam to run. So I think of that when these fucking grocery store kingpins in New York who clearly inflate prices. It's like, what are they afraid of? Well, they're afraid of these free grocery store, not free, but these public run grocery stores selling at just wholesale prices. They're done. They're done because they're not going to be able to compete with that and do a shitty job and all that, you know. So that's a long way of saying, right? This insidiousness of turning everything over to the private sector, even though, as Doge found, it is so much more inefficient than any public run version because they're in it to make money. Whereas
we went from big ag to big balls, and it didn't work.
that should be the book. That should be the next Kurt Eichenwald book title. You know,
I think he's working on it. Yeah,
covering Doge. Yeah.
Fuck, man.
But they found. Oh, wait a minute. In the same way, the mob needs to skim the cream off the top and inflate costs, right, and pass it on to someone else. If you get the private sector involved in all this fucking shit, they're going to do as shitty a job as possible for the most money.
Yeah.
And if it was turned into a public service, you would have control over that, and you wouldn't have that going on.
And they might do a shitty job, but then you can kick those people out and get the next round of people.
At worst case, you get much smaller scale corruption. You pluck that guy out, and it actually works, as opposed to the kind of Mark Whitaker approach, the bad apple approach or whatever, where you get this one guy out who like was stupid enough to fuck up and get caught, and everybody else stays in. And now they've learned, you know, they're like fruit fly style. They've now just evolved to not do that anymore.
And comparatively, the FBI loves going after public corruption cases, right? And have a stronger record on that than going after white collar crime, right?
Right. There's and then the, you know, as we talk about on the show all the time, things like terms like crime, criminality, corruption. These are very vague and shifting terms. They shift throughout history. They shift all the time. And in reading about, and like trying to, you know, reading about corruption in agriculture, so much of what I was finding were like think tank type websites with essays about corruption in places like India, in the global south. And literally, like, the word corruption and like U.S. agriculture, they don't go together. I found this really fascinating article I'll link in the show notes, called "Why Capitalism Loves Corruption" by Gareth Fearn in Tribune, the magazine from the UK, where he talks about, you know, liberals try to shrug off corruption as a bug in our system, but it's really a feature, which is sort of the thing we're all saying. But it actually gets into the roots of these corrupt practices in Africa and in India, coming from the British colonialists who came there to sort of start
divide
these
and rule
industries
and,
to extract. And so, like, to the extent that there is endemic corruption in somewhere like India, the East India Company taught them how to do it. And his example, or his sort of solution at the end of the article, is he says, to seriously counter corruption, then we have to radically expand democracy. You can bribe 10 people, but it's much harder to bribe 10,000, which I think, Dan, is what you're talking about. Like government run and like vastly distributed ways of taking over these same industries, because like it's Mick Andreas, Dwayne Andreas, they're like kind of doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and Dwayne Andreas, we sort of touched on this earlier. He has qualities that a mob boss, I mean, the great skill of those guys, Donald Trump has this, Warren Buffett has this, is to be in charge of an organization and not know entirely what's going on, to insulate yourself on purpose, and yet to convey orders in a way that they will be understood without saying it out loud. And this is something that sometimes it's a little murky, the comparison of mob to business. This is one-to-one.
You guys have called it the telepathic communication on your podcast, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And Donald Trump had that. Michael Coen talked about this, that Donald Trump could give an order without saying it. Right. And he's not that smart a guy. So
he's just learned.
He's just learned to do that, you know. And I wanted to say something else to that, because I think that's very interesting how we blame, you know, there's a culture of corruption in Russia or here or there. And it's like, I forget who said this, but they said, you know, the reason Chicago and New York have a reputation for corruption is they have the most newspapers. It's not that they're actually more corrupt than these other places. The fucking South, Decatur, Illinois, I don't care where it is. It's just as bad. It just is done differently, you know, and it's not as exposed, I think, personally.
Kind of reminds me of the Spanish flu thing, where it didn't originate in Spain, but they had like the best virologists or something. So everybody's like, it's the Spanish flu. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just to the point you were making earlier about this sort of the question of criminality, which we have discussed previously on the podcast. Dan, in that same Gravano episode, I think you guys talk about the need for the FBI or the DOJ to control the narrative, because that's really what they're doing. And, you know, I'm not saying that the jury system is without its benefits, but that is how you convict a criminal in our system, right? Is to say, to tell a good enough story that the juries say, okay, this is a bad type of guy, right? And I think...
Yeah, and that hits upon, there is a more cynical way of viewing all these FBI agents going to bat for Mark Whitaker, right? Which is, this is their baby. This is their project.
Right.
And their reputations rest somewhat on him being a good guy, right?
Yeah, this comes up again and again in the book where they're trying to shield him from, you know, the Ann Cusacks, the other DOJ people, the whatever, the lawyers and stuff, because in part it's like, this guy is really fragile, he's skittish, like they've seen him sort of, because the movie doesn't really get at it. It covers a pretty long span of time, but he'll like say, oh, I couldn't tape anything for like a year.
Well,
and then
I mean, in the film, a wonderful line, he says, I didn't make any tapes. If I'd made tapes, they would have been stupid tapes. He's like he's like a Tim Robinson character sometimes, which is great. Yeah. But
like they are protecting him, and there's like a sense, you know, they have the picture of Whitaker and his family in their pocket to remember this is a real guy. But then there's also like they're cultivating a source, and they want to keep this guy, they want to keep this source fruitful for as long as possible. But also, like, you know, they're people, and people even like, but whatever, Hitler loved his dog. Like, people sometimes have kind feelings toward their informants when they're cops.
Well, and there's a darker version of this story too, of Whitey Bulger being an FBI informant, the mob boss in Boston for years, and really turning them to the point that they were feeding him information to kill informants and mobsters. And you know, the relation, like, so look, we keep bringing up the Gravano episode. I mean, Sammy Gravano, like, it's interesting. This is the underboss of the Gambinos. He put John Gotti away for life. He admitted to 19 murders in the course of this, and got 5 years in prison for it and was released. And it's like, as time goes on, I think, look, they had lost twice in court against Gotti. By the third time, they needed a return on their investment, and they needed him to go away. And they could not afford to be embarrassed again as an institution.
Right.
So they made this deal, which, as time has gone on, I just find indefensible to make that deal with Gravano. I don't really think I can believe again with Mark Whitaker. Can we trust a word Sammy Gravano has to give? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, and now he's a social media influencer, which I can't even fucking get into. But where, you know, what's the justice there? Yeah, John Gotti died in prison, but maybe you fucking needed to get him another way. You know?
Yeah, that's, you know, the Capone tax evasion story, the sort of classic, like, these guys slip up somewhere, but then you also have, like, the FBI, they are accountable to oversight, and they have budgets, and they have, like, quotas they want to hit, and there's all these other factors and motivations that go into, like, well, do we, in the book, they're always talking about, like, maybe just focus on lysine, maybe give up on citric acid and gluconate, and MSG was another. Like, do we go to court with what we have? Do we wait to get more? And, like, fucking Janet Reno makes all the U.S. attorneys resign. Like, there's all this other shit going on that is just making it harder for these guys to get a particular set of white collar criminals convicted. And, like, it's very clear that the whole system is not designed to protect anyone from these guys. It's to protect these guys from convictions, because, like, they give all the money to there's a part in the book that doesn't even get into the movie where they almost had to postpone the raid. They've been building up to this raid for years. They almost have to postpone the raid because someone realizes 2 days before the raid, Dwayne Andreas is supposed to get an award from the FBI for when they cooperated with the FBI on investigating somebody else. Like, literally, he's supposed to go to New York to be handed an award for being a good citizen. And also, you know, I'm thinking about 9/11. All these guys are not talking to each other. All these guys are, like, hoarding information. These government agencies are hoarding information for one another out of, like, spite and just like a bullshit sort of basically intercompany politics. And it's the kind of stuff that may have led to 9/11 unless
not being foiled, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they are human in the same way the Archer Daniels Midland people are human, and in some respects not so different in terms of institutions, which are kind of all steering in the same direction generally. I mean, I mean, I will say, here's what seems to be the difference now, right? And this is true in the FBI and this is true in business. It does feel like it's become so short-timerism that it's eating itself, right? Mm-hmm. If all you care about is the next quarter's earnings, right? Well, you will undo the long-term financial health of your corporation to hit that goal, right?
Right.
And like we see this over and over again. Once the stock market gets its hooks in a company, they will sell out their long-term existence just for a short-term bump. The FBI is dismantling itself in many respects right now out of revenge by this far-right clique around Trump.
Right.
This guy, Kash Patel, is such a fucking clown, and he is demolishing the FBI from within. It's truly bizarre,
Yeah, it's Trump installing people whose like sole ideological position is this department shouldn't exist, and now you're the head of that department. Did it with the EPA, did all these things.
Yeah, I mean, I want to shout out the good JW, not like Marriott, but there's a heterodox economist named JW Mason who talks about exactly this short-termism stuff. A lot of his writing is about how increasingly companies, like you're saying, are sabotaging themselves. And I mean, Big Ag is maybe the best example of that, I would say, in history, in the sense that they are degrading soil. They are putting themselves in this cycle of needing to fertilize and knowing that fertilization is killing the bacteria that they need to be able to produce the compounds that plants need, whatever. And just like locking themselves into this death spiral and saying, basically, as long as I'm going to be CEO, this won't be a problem. Or I hope it won't be a problem. I hope the next 5 years, the next 10 years are not when we're going to have Dust Bowl times 10, basically. And, it's a weird gamble because what's the oddest thing to me is a little bit like Exxon and whatever it was, 78, when they admitted to global warming stuff. It's not like they will say that it's not happening. They have to acknowledge, yes, soil is degraded. Yes, there is less carbonaceous biomass or whatever. Yes, the production levels are dropping year after year. As oil gets more difficult to acquire, that means petroleum-based fertilizer is more difficult to get. So they're just saying, like, yeah, all that is true, but we're not going to change because that would be extraordinarily expensive and difficult to do. And they're sort of saying, like, what are you going to do about it? It's just like, it's like a game of chicken where they say, like, well, like we've already said, anybody who tries a different way, their production costs are going to go up and they're not going to compete with us. So everybody has to do it our way effectively, unless subsidies change dramatically. So then the challenge becomes, like, who is going to convince them? Is it the government going to convince them? Well, the government, famously, you can't be elected president if you go against corn farmers or whatever, right? So, if you
the government is them. Yeah,
exactly. So there is this question of, like, who is going to be the one to step up and say, we're not going to let this happen? It's not going to be the CEOs because they would be fired immediately. It's not going to be the shareholders because then they wouldn't be making money. So I don't know. It takes a collective moral strength that I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I just worry, like, how are we going to get so many people simultaneously to make the right decision? And that's kind of a question of this film, right? Is Mark saying, like, well, everybody was doing it. What, am I going to be the guy who's not making money? Obviously, I think he was particularly acute, but he wasn't the only one making up Nordstrom chemies. He was just particularly flagrant about it. I don't know.
Well, I will say one country that's not mentioned in this movie is China. And and that's because it's not just a partner or a puppet of, like you said, it's not Japan, South Korea, Germany, and, I was quite struck by the news that Economist story that was getting some play about the scale of China's success building renewable energy.
Just stunning, staggering.
That's going to be the story of the century, I think, in many respects, and probably our only hope. And it's going to come at the direct expense of these guys, of these American corporate titans. I don't see any way it won't. I'm
trying to get a red card marriage. I think that's what they call it over there.
Yeah.
If any sort of homely Chinese ladies are looking for a homely American husband, podcastingforme@gmail.com.
It could happen.
It could happen. Hey, anything could happen. I did one last thought to put toward you guys. Soderbergh also did the film Traffic, which is about cartels.
Not as funny.
Not as funny.
Not as funny, yeah.
But it's also about cartels. This, the lysine producers have been described as a cartel. And this film also sort of kicks off what I would call Soderbergh's extremely yellow period, where all his movies are really yellow, and he is called out for the yellow Mexico filter in Traffic. But I wonder if here is he sort of transplanting the yellow filter onto these white guys and saying, this is not the Mexico filter. This is actually
and the color of corn and the color of,
Yeah. So I don't know. Is this a small make good? Is this a kind of, Philadelphia after the Silence of the Lambs?
My problem is more the appearing that he shot it on a early camera phone.
He was messing with the red cameras and stuff. They were, they were new.
Boy, I didn't care for that. It seems like it's evened out since then, but if I have one complaint, it looks pretty grainy.
Yeah, some of the Blu-ray review guys are like, well, it's hard to know if this is what he wanted it to look like.
Yeah. But I give credit to him. He loves experimenting on these things. And
he does.
Again, I think it's insane that he wants his movies to be released the same day on demand or whatever that it comes out. Like, that one is just nuts to me. I mean, I do whatever is the opposite of that to keep theaters going is my feeling, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, he's a guy who wants to, he doesn't want the industry to stagnate, but maybe his ideas for non-stagnation are a little odd sometimes.
I mean, we know
he has a hit rate.
Yeah, but he's taken some strange swings in the past, but I think that's how a hit rate works, right? He's going to replace Jason Giambi in aggregate. That's what's going to work for him. So, They didn't make the Hunt for Ben Solo, but Soderbergh did. He was the guy who came up with the idea of opening Rise of Skywalker in Fortnite. That was his idea. Sure. That's huge. Yeah. I mean, I will say that just visually, I didn't hate it because some of the warmth and cheapness, that combination has a Mark Whitaker feel to it for me.
It kind of fits.
It's like domestic and it's chintzy. I don't know, at the same time. I think it fits the clothing. It fits the food. Whenever they show food, it looks horrible. Which I really appreciate. His house, his furnishings.
That was the real house, the real Whitaker house.
Oh, that's really funny. And something I found really funny was when they show the offices, it's covered in Lincoln stuff, which I found really funny.
His Abraham Lincoln bust, is really great.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a fun movie. It's and it does succeed at being like a different kind of insider, a different kind of Erin Brockovich, where like it's sort of quietly bleaker because everyone is a schmuck and they all kind of get away with it.
Well, and to make the other connection, I think Schizopolis, which is not a film that Jake and I are huge fans of, but it covers some of the same sort of anxieties of being this office worker. We see that Mark, again, this may be complete projection by Burns or Soderbergh's part, but he has some of the same concerns about like, well, there was a guy and he said this certain phrase, my tie is the same as yours, but the pattern is reversed. And then he dropped dead. Sort of this mix of obsession with your own mortality. He talks about being blotchy as a sign of having a stroke, in the sense of like, everything in my world is this sort of like puzzle box related to my personal obsessions, my personal fears, my vision of myself as a Crichton protagonist. And
he thinks he's going to become the president of the company.
Yeah, which is, I mean, everybody in his life is like, the scene, speaking of Anne Cusack, where she has to like look away from him when he keeps saying, I think I'm going to be fine at the company, right? You guys think that too. And I think,
insane.
Yeah. I mean, having all these pieces form this man who had I think a historic influence. I mean, you mentioned it already, Jake, but he is really credited with being like the impetus for price fixing investigations that have totaled in the billions of dollars now in terms of fines and lawsuits.
And fixed everything for us.
Well,
It's
And
all
it
good
doesn't
now.
it doesn't
Quite,
cost
yeah.
$15 to buy an apple.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, fellas, as we come sort of to the close of our conversation?
We didn't talk about it that much, so I'm going to reiterate. You've never seen Matt Damon funnier than in this movie.
He's so funny in this.
When he sees the ant get the thing, he says, I mean, if you're an ant, that's a big break right there. And I was like, God damn it, that's so good.
Crushing. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
really crushing.
Like, he has a moment where he hangs up on the FBI agent. My plane's boarding. I got to go. Bye. Hangs up and then switches faces again. Like, oh, he's so good in this. Yeah.
It's really astonishing. It's the kind of thing that should have won an Oscar if they gave it to comedic performances. But he's really incredible. I think, getting it. There's a kind of Coen-y, like Coen brothers-y milieu that he and Clooney both get into, more in Clooney's own like directorial stuff, but the combined influence of like Soderbergh and the Coens, I feel like they keep trying stuff like this, like the Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Men Who Stare at Goats sort of feels like a similar tone that, I'm not mad at. Like, even if the movies aren't like terrific, none of these get to the level of Burn After Reading or whatever.
Well, or I was going to say, I mean, less funny, but Michael Clayton is if I'm being honest, in my heart, I know Michael Clayton's a better movie. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I know that, but this is and pretty funny, actually, now that I think about it. But
it does
we'll
have
leave
some
that
good
for
stuff.
another.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, the top looks and stuff. I will say, though, Jake, I disagree. Sorry to the White Sea friends. I think this is a better film than Burn After Reading, because I think Burn After Reading...
I agree, actually. Yeah.
To me, it does the thing that you mentioned at the beginning of our episode, which is like, by making a mockery of all these people, and I think especially their sort of interpersonal foibles, it destroys any like moral clarity, which isn't, I mean, I still enjoy the film. I think Burn After Reading is fun, but I think it becomes this farce of outsized personalities colliding with each other and not much more, despite it being about DC and the CIA and this weird mix of politics and gym employees and stuff. But I think, it all becomes a mockery in the way that I think sometimes people are worried about with like an Iannucci or a Vice or whatever.
Right. Gym Employees is going to be our guest on next week's show. I think Burn After Reading is like maybe their bleakest movie, quietly their darkest, most nihilistic film. I think you might be right. And let's have our friends Ray and Jordan do a show called To the White Sea about Coen Brothers movies. Maybe we should have them back on to fight them about which movie is better.
Okay,
we can take our shirts off. Just not. I'm just spitballing. Kimmy, do you have any final thoughts?
Nordkron Kimmy.
Yep, I think so too.
That's a really good point.
Shout out to Nordcom. Yeah.
We have one last segment we like to do before we close things up. This is called Popcornopolis.
This is Popcornopolis, the segment where we ask our guest, do you like popcorn?
Dan, do you like popcorn?
Oh yeah, that's a big yes over here.
Yeah, I kind of knew that. What's going on with you and popcorn recently?
Not much. Here's the story on this, okay? I have not had popcorn in nearly 4 years. Because here's the deal. I love popcorn so much.
Doesn't love you back.
What's the line in the Bible? That he loved his son so much, he,
gave the world his own,
something like that.
Dan
right?
3:16. Yeah.
That's it, right? And so that's the deal with popcorn. I go to the movies a lot. I walk on by,
Is this medically advised, or did you make this decision yourself? Or
it was like, I wanted to lose some weight and get healthier, and then my last physical, I was the first time in my life I got a glowing blood work. So It worked, but it meant no popcorn. Which, by the way, I think is scientifically the worst thing you can eat.
Corn, we
previously discussed. Well, specifically this iteration of corn. I mean, I'm also a big popcorn fan. I'll down a whole bucket It's a promise that I will feel bad for hours. Like I'm not a headache guy. I'll get a headache from popcorn. And
the acid reflux is nightmarish with that. As you get older, it just becomes impossible to eat it even more. And so I made a clean break, and I haven't looked back. And such is life.
Yeah, take the money and run from popcorn, I guess. Well, thank you for that, Dan. And thanks so much for joining us. Really enjoyed this conversation.
This
really
was so
enjoying
much fun.
The outfit. Again,
Thank
listeners, check it out. Is there anything you would like to plug vis-a-vis that, or anything else you got going on?
Yeah, just check out the outfit, wherever podcasts are found. If you like this, I mean, this is a lot of what we sort of discuss on it. And, in the new year, we're going to start that 10-episode series on Capone, but it's every week, it comes out every Thursday. So check it out.
Yeah, really great. I'm loving it and psyched about the Capone stuff. Great show. Love the show.
Thanks, guys. This was a blast.
Thank you. As for us, remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. It helps us on the algorithm. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, tell the FBI. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pod Casty For Me. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or you're interested in co-hosting a two-person Steven Soderbergh podcast, you can email us at podcastingforme@gmail.com. All of this is at podcastingforme.com and at shootingyourselfinthehead.com. Thank you to Jeremy Allison for our artwork. We'll be back in 2 weeks. If you can't wait that long, go on over to the Patreon. You got $5. You've been embezzling. We know it. We can tell from how you're changing your story.
That's the way things are done over there. Yeah.
That's how it works. Dwayne Andreas knows about your Patreon.
Exactly.
I would love for Dwayne Andreas to know about the Patreon. I would change a lot of the things I said from this episode. All right. Bye.
Bye.